Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Vicky Townsends, and I'm the founder and president at Divorce Right. And we provide training for HR professionals and for anybody in a leadership capacity, supervisory capacity, anybody with direct reports. And so we provide the training for you, and we provide divorce coaching and case management for your divorcing employees. And we tackle that biggest of disruptors in your company, divorce. And today we're discussing how your employees from other countries will experience divorce in different ways that is true to their background and their culture. So today we will be discussing how Asian employees go through divorce so that you can understand what they're going through and that may be very different from a traditional American divorce. So please meet Elizabeth Yang, CEO and founder of Yang Law Offices. And she has been practicing law since 2007 and specializes in intellectual property law, including patent, copyright, and trademark prosecution and litigation, business law, including corporate entity formation, contract drafting, contract disputes, litigation, family law, including divorce, child custody, child support, alimony, and asset division. She's in estate planning, including establishing wills and trusts. She is fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And Elizabeth was admitted to the United States Patent and Trademark Office in 2007. At the age of 19, she earned her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley in just 2.5 years. Prior to starting her own practice, Elizabeth gained extensive experience at various international intellectual property law firms, where her practice primarily focused on a variety of technologies. Elizabeth further has extensive experience dealing with family law issues involving child custody, child support, alimony, asset division, and prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. Being a divorced mother of two young children, she understands and can relate to clients who are also undergoing emotions. She has represented family law clients both efficiently and compassionately at various stages of litigation and trial. Elizabeth earned her mediation certification in 2015 from the Los Angeles County Bar Association and has assisted many combative litigants in resolving their issues through mediation and alternative dispute resolution. Elizabeth is a best-selling author and to date has published a total of 6 books. In 2017, Elizabeth published her first best-selling book, The Big Secret, alongside Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And in 2018, Elizabeth published her second book, Stress-Free Divorce, to assist parties going through a very difficult time in their lives. And her most recent books include The Authorities, Powerful Wisdom from Leaders in the Field, Women in the Modern Business World, and Social Marriage, and Asian Women Who Boss Up. And she is our boss up today. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us here today as we talk about how the Asian culture experiences divorce. And I know that you know that. And we've actually chatted and had you on our actual training program about Asians and divorce. So I thought it was really important that we open this up and have this conversation today. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on this, Vicky. It's always nice to talk to you.
Absolutely. And you have been um, such an inspiration on understanding how people from around the world experience divorce in different ways. And so much so that we thought that it was really important to, in our training, to put in the cultural differences. So I wanted to just kind of turn it over to you and talk about what some of the cultural differences are in the Asian community that we here in the United States might find different, unusual, um, things like that. Because I know that I learned from you that in the Chinese culture that arranged marriages was quite a normal thing, and I didn't realize that. I knew that in an Indian marriages, but was not that familiar with that in the Chinese culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our main office is located in the city of Monterey Park, about 15 minutes east of downtown LA, and it's in the heart of San Gabriel Valley, which is very Asian centric. We've got really good dim sum, so a lot of people come out for good food. But majority of my clients are of Asian descent, predominantly Chinese, and many of them come from China and Taiwan. They've been here a few years. They weren't born here. They weren't raised here. So I see a lot of differences between divorces from my Chinese clients versus divorces from my non-Asian clients. One of the biggest differences is, and these are like stereotypes, it's not the same across the board, but generally, couples from Asia, from China, from Taiwan, they're more conservative, and the divorce topic is very taboo. It's not something that's tread on so lightly like here in the US. Here in California, the divorce rate in general is 70%. So most couples, it's like the divorce is like a natural thing. If I go and talk to a bunch of my friends here in America, the it's very normal for people to say, "Oh yeah, I've been divorced in the past." It's actually more often than not, 70% that folks are divorced. But in Asia, in China, in Taiwan, it's different. It's frowned upon for people to get divorced, especially for women. If women get divorced, their families almost want to disown them. It's like they would rather someone be in an abusive, unhealthy relationship than say, "I've been divorced." So that's how critical the Asian community is.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a divorce coach in our community here at Divorce Right that is Indian, and she was in an arranged marriage. And when she told her mother that she wanted a divorce, her mother said, "If you divorce him, I'll drink acid." Meanwhile, she was talking to her from the hospital with a broken arm, a broken clavicle, and a broken orbital bone,
Oh my gosh.
which had been going on a very long time. The mother was very well aware of that. And that was her answer. And I think she hung on in that marriage for another 4 years before she decided that she couldn't do it anymore and realized that she was going to have to take her chances because it was either going to be her life or the threat of from her mother. And and also we have another uh, attorney, Jackie Harunian. She's in New York, and she handles a lot of religious divorces. And she says, "I can't tell you the number of times that parents have said to me, I would rather my child get cancer than get a divorce."
Yeah, it's so true. And just by seeing a lot of my clients go through this, their families are not supportive of divorce, no matter what the reason is, whether it's abuse or infidelity or whatnot. They're just not supportive of it. Very similar to prenups, because or law firm, we do prenups as well. The Asian community frowns upon prenups. They think like superstitions. If you get a prenup, you might as well not get married because it's a foreboding that you're going to get a divorce. Just like how people don't get wills and trusts. They don't do estate planning because there's a superstition. If we do estate planning, that means someone's going to die soon. So they don't even want to talk about the subject. It's like, let's just not talk about it, sweep it under the rug, sweep the prenup and the finances and all that under the rug. And let's just pray and hope it doesn't come up.
Wow. Wow. So how do you handle, and especially out there in California on the west coast of the United States, and everywhere else too, but there does seem to be a larger population of the Asian culture out west. So if they've got an Asian employee that's going through a divorce, what are some of the things that they may be going through that maybe their employer should start to learn about or understand, have an understanding anyway?
I think just knowing these basics, that divorce in Asian cultures are not the same as in Americanized cultures, that they are going through a lot of stress because it's not just from their ex that they're divorcing. Now it's from the whole family and their whole community. They're getting judgments left and right. And now they're trying to figure out their new identity as a single person in the community and how to gain back the respect from their family and friends if they ever will. because now they have this new title on them, divorce. So it's a lot of stress, consciously and subconsciously, that they're going through during this process. And so for the employer to be understanding, maybe even provide some support networks, counseling, therapy, some kind of educational courses for them to go through this healing process. And support groups, I think, are very important, because then folks realize they're not the only ones going through this, that there are a lot of other people, that because a lot of folks who are going through divorce, they feel alone. They feel like everyone's lives are going great except mine. Why me? Why do I have to suffer this? Why does my family hate me? Just like how your the person you knew, the mom was going to drink acid. One of my clients, their mom was going to commit suicide. She said, if you're going to get out of this relationship, you're a horrible daughter, and I'm going to kill myself because I can't live with this disgrace that my daughter went through a divorce. I'm just going to, die.
Right. What kind of pressure is that? I mean, how horrible is it to be that daughter that says, I'm coming to my mom because I'm in trouble. I'm in a relationship that is potentially almost killing me. And so how is there changing that culture? Is that something that is modernizing through time, or is this still going to be something that people deal with on a regular basis?
I think as generations come and they get assimilated in the US, and they see different cultures, and they see how it's okay for other people to go through divorces, and it actually ends up being fine. They end up being happier, and it's not the end of the world for them to be leaving a partner that's not right for them. As folks here see that, then yes, it does get better, and things do change. But for those who are new to the States, because there are people immigrating here on a daily basis that are brand new to Americanized culture, and all they knew was the bubble they lived in from the country they came from, those folks are still assimilating, and it's brand new. They're going through the process all over again.
So we talked about a little bit about arranged marriages, and that's something that here in the United States we don't necessarily have a comfort level with that. So can you talk a little bit about how that all came around? How is it that is, and what does that mean in the culture of the Asian community? Because I have to be honest with you, I don't know how I would handle if my mother had picked out my husband for me when I was a baby. Although I'm not sure I did the best job myself, but I would love to know why that is and how that evolved and what the meaning behind that is.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest cultural differences is how close knit the family is in Asian cultures. Parents are very hands on and very controlling, even after the kids are grown. So here in America, the kids are 18. They're considered legally an adult. They go to college, they move out, they're independent. In Asian culture and Chinese culture, because I'm familiar with Chinese culture personally, um, parents stay parents see their children forever as children. No matter if they're 25 or 30 or 40 or even 50, they're always their children, and they're always going to control them. And so they want to have a say in their lives and their futures. And one of the biggest things, part of their life, is who they marry. And so for parents to have that control over their kids, they created arranged marriages so they can choose the partner. And they think they know best, because they think their kids they're going to do trial and error, find the wrong person. And so they think that based on the community and the family, the whole family and community chooses the partner for the child based on, you know, parents know best, mother knows best, that kind of philosophy. And then their expectation is that when kids grow older, they are required to take care of the parents. So there's oftentimes you see multiple generations living under the same roof. You've got the grandparents, their kids, and the grandkids all living together, because it's the parents' job to take care of the grandparents. You don't just move out and flock out of the nest and you're independent. You're supposed to come back and take care of the parents until they grow old for the rest of their lives. There's no such thing as a senior, living center, assisted
Oh,
living.
really?
Yeah, like my mom would tell me, like, if you ever put me in a senior center and you're not here to take care of me, I would rather die. Like,
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's so shameful for an Asian person to be in a senior center, because it shows that your kids abandoned you and they don't care about you.
Oh, so see, there are so many things that we here don't, that things just aren't the same, and it doesn't mean that one is worse than the other. It just means they're different, and we need to, as employers, come to an understanding that this is the way their family is, and we have to help and support them. So, what are some of the challenges? Obviously, telling mom, right? Like that, and the family. How does that go? What obviously, like, the woman that I was telling you about, where her mother said she was going to drink acid, and another one said that she was going to commit suicide. Is that the typical answer in this? Because I can't imagine how stressful that would be. And in the case of this woman I was telling you about, that's from India, um, you know, she waited another 4 years before she actually left a man that had been beating her for when they were in India. He was beating her, and her mother knew. So, you know, that's unbelievable pressure that I would not have had that kind of pressure here in the United States. So I cannot imagine that doesn't have an impact on employees as they show up to work, and having to live in the case of my friend, the woman that was going to drink acid for 4 years. She lived in a home where she knew that her mother knew that she was being beaten, but that was acceptable. Divorce was not. So how would you suggest uh, an employer can support their employee by getting them some sort of help around this issue when it's a cultural issue? I mean, this is going back hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cultural issue, and it's also a generational issue as well, because um, grandparents, parents, they've lived their life the way it is, and they feel like this is the right thing to do. But times are changing so quickly, and so as times change for the next generations, they feel like the older generation feels like it's wrong because it's different from what they're used to. Like back in the day, like my grandparents, if there was any issues, infidelity, struggles, they stuck together through thick and thin. They divorce was not an option. And that's why the marriages lasted way longer. My grandparents were together for 60, 70 years.
Wow.
And that's what they expect for the rest of their family and the generations. So when they see their children and grandchildren getting divorced, they're like, this is not right. We stuck it out. How come you guys are calling it quits so easily without really giving it your all? But the problem is, back then, they weren't, I mean, the quality of life now is so much better than it was back then. And I mean, we have like instant information. We have
Right.
phones, we have technology, we have emails. Like everything is so fast. The quality of life 10 years ago, 20 years ago was way less than it is now. So they were okay not experiencing the same level of joy and satisfaction that we expect nowadays. And so they can suck through it and be okay with being unhappy and be like, this is life. We get to be unhappy and we get to struggle. Whereas now you've got dating websites, you can access all these people at the click of your fingertip.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, swipe right, swipe right. There's so many
Right.
options. It's not just limited to the people in your town or your community. You have options. And so people are like, why would I want to sit in this relationship and be unhappy and try to work things out when there's all this other fish in the ocean that I can go explore. So
Mm.
it's a very different world we live in today with all the new technology, and the older generations, whether it's based on age or culture or whatever, they don't see it because it's changed so fast. And so they make the younger generation wrong with us wanting to call it quits or move on or file divorce or whatever it may be that's different from them. And that's where the judgment comes from.
You told me a story of a client of yours that because of the culture that they were from in China, which it involved another woman. This involved. Do you recall that story that you shared? Would you mind sharing that again? We can leave names out for sure, but just to give some people's an overview of what some of the things are that they face.
Yeah, yeah. So, in the Chinese culture, it's very common for the men to not be home, to be traveling and doing business abroad, going overseas, and not being at home. And it's actually very common for men to have um, mistresses and second wives, third wives. Not legal wives, but mistresses on the side. That's actually very common. And there's actually a phrase in the Chinese language. um, it's called 睁一只眼闭一只眼. It means you leave one eye open and you shut one eye. Yeah, like you look at the things that will keep life going, and the things that are not okay, like infidelity or your husband cheating, you close one eye on it. You just pretend you don't see it, and you keep the marriage going, you keep the family going, you continue raising the kids. That's what that sentence means, and it's very common in the Chinese culture and in other Asian cultures for relationships to be like that. For men to just it's like back in the emperor days. Genghis Khan, the emperor, they had thousands of wives and concubines. The men, they don't have thousands of mistresses, but they have a few, and the women close one eye, open one eye.
You had talked about what happened, which I found really, really interesting, where you used culture from where this woman came from to determine the date of filing in a divorce. And I found that fascinating. Could you share about what the strategy was that you did there?
Yeah, of course. So in California, the date of separation is critical because the length of the marriage is measured from the date of marriage. That's easy. You look at your marriage certificate, you know the date of marriage, but the date of separation is not so clear cut. The date of separation is not necessarily the date you filed for divorce. It's definitely not the day your divorce is finalized. The date of separation is when the couple is no longer considered together. But that's so factually based, it's so subjective, because some couples, they'll stop being together, they'll stop sleeping together, they'll stop living together, they'll have new relationships, but they won't file for divorce because it's so taboo to legally file for divorce. So they'll wait 5 years, 10 years, 15 years before they're like, okay, now we're finally going to file. But we haven't been a couple for years and years and years. So that date of separation is not the date that the divorce finally got filed with the courts. It's way back when they stopped being together and seeing each other as their partner. So in the Chinese culture, because it's so normal for husbands to be away from the family, away from their wives, there was one case that I worked on that there was a whole dispute about what the date of separation was. The man, in order to try to minimize his spousal support and also to not have to divide as many assets, he said the date of separation was way early on when he was already traveling for business and when he already had mistresses. The wife said, no, all this time, I thought you were still my husband because it's normal for husbands to go out and not come home. So I'm still home taking care of our children. taking care of the household, even though we don't live together because you're traveling for business, you're still my husband. And so the date of separation should be now, because we're still husband and wife, even though we don't have a physical relationship. And so this whole ordeal was litigated, and the difference in the number of years was more than 5 years. That's a huge difference, between how much support she's going to get. And so they ended up having to call a cultural expert into the case to explain that it's normal for Chinese husbands to not be at home and be away from the family, but they're still a couple. They're still in a relationship, even though they're not physically together.
And so that cultural expert was you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important when you have employees that are from different areas. And hopefully what this conversation today was to show you that you have employees from all over the world, and they all experience differences in how we handle divorce. And there was one, and it's one of your attorneys that work in your firm that did one on the Iranian divorce, and how that she's working on one for 7 years, because in Iran, a husband and wife that divorces, the woman gets zero. And so he's rather shocked that he's here in the United States now, and that's not the case. And he doesn't want to settle because this is not the way divorce would have worked in his country. So you can start to see how these kinds of traditions that come along with culture, when they move here to the United States, that gets brought to them and is oftentimes a burden for them to get themselves out of, as well as just the marriage itself. So they've got other things that are happening in their hearts and in their homes, and in their families, that in a traditional American family we wouldn't have. So thank you for having this conversation with us today, Elizabeth. You have been absolutely what I would consider that absolutely a cultural expert in Asian matters, specifically around divorce. So what I would love, Elizabeth, if you would tell everybody how to get in touch with you out there in the LAX area.
Yeah, sure. My website is yanglawoffices.com. That's YANG lawoffices.com. And my Instagram is at Yang Law Offices.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So everybody, I hope that you got a lot out of this and understand that because people come to the United States from other countries, they also bring with them the culture that they have been brought up with. So thank you so much for opening our eyes to this conversation, Elizabeth. We appreciate you so much. And we will be back next week with more conversations around how your employees experience divorce, so that you can help them with the right resources, like Elizabeth, finding tips and techniques and discussion topics on how to help your employees as they move through this. So thank you so much. And we will see you all next week, 1:00 Thursdays, Eastern time. Bye for now, everybody. Bye,
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.